Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is July 28th. Is this the last trading day of the month? Is this it? 2023. I think so.
31st on Monday.
Oh, we get the Monday, the 31st. Well, there you have it. It's not what I thought it was. It's something different. I didn't realize there were 31 days in the July.
That's what I'm here for.
31 days in the July. Did you know that there were 31 days?
I never know until I actually look at a calendar.
Yeah, that makes a little bit of sense. So, once again, we have more ERs that report well. Okay, even the Intel vendor we were talking yesterday, the entire market was, had bated breath waiting for them to report. And what do? They did not disappoint.
It's a new day.
It's a new day.
Yeah.
It's like the air smells cleaner. The bacon tastes better. It's like, come on. It's like, what more could you ask for? We also had more economic data coming out this morning. It's everything that you want it to be. I don't know that you can look at the data released this morning and be like, if you were bearish, be like, all right, this is finally our chance. We're going to get it. Don't think that that's within the data. We did rally last night, Bender. I think when they came to the conclusion that whatever they were talking about out of Japan is a very slow, drawn out process, to where if you're looking for a flood, at best, you're going to get a trickle. At best, you get a trickle as far as what that policy is going to be and how they're going to move it around. So we did get a nice rebound. Data came in well. We're at a point now to where, at least when I look at everything, man, I'm looking at this from the standpoint to where we actually need a decent close on this weekly and monthly candle. It's kind of a need, more so than it would be nice if you're somewhat bull. So why don't you walk us through some of the smaller pieces as far as where we are a little bit more tight, and then maybe we look a little bit, further out as far as getting an idea of where potentially we could close these candles.
All right. Well, here's the 60-minute. And like you said, we did rally a little bit. But if you're looking at the 60-minute, all we have done thus far is fill back in this first 60-minute fair value gap. Mm-hmm. Right? There's still one up here above, but if you look at the drop right here, I'm going to guess that we're somewhere near the midpoint. Mm-hmm. This pullback, 50%, 45, 94, 25, and filling in that 60-minute fair value gap. So I do have, that next 60-minute fair value gap up here. Given the way that these 60-minute candles, we had this pull right here and then bounce back up into it and then pull again and now bounce back up into it. Given the way that these are shaping up, kind of like you were, I think, just alluding to, if we don't get up and through this, then this sort of trend continues. So we look for it if we're thinking that potentially there's more pullback in store. Then we look for this 60-minute fair value gap. I'd like to see this left open, but potentially it comes and fills this back in. But then look for the signs that, okay, now that this is filled, that we potentially pull back down off of it. If it gets through it and we go take out this previous high, then we're probably up here at 46.50. As far as, what the targets might be if we're going to continue what these last couple 60-minute candles have done. If this was the turnaround, some of the targets below, I've got this 60-minute fair value gap. I mean, this was pretty close to it. It's, for the most part, it's filled in. So I don't think that that would be the final target. If it's going to turn around and start heading back down, like, there's no reason for it to come back down into here to fill this in and bounce. It's close enough. Probably this double bottom, relative equal lows right here, 45, 28. And then we've got this regular trading hours gap at 45.20. This is the midpoint of that channel right here. And then you can stretch out these 60-minute fair value gaps to kind of see where those sit. But if we start pushing down here, I would look for this to get taken at double bottom 45.28. And if that doesn't get reclaimed, then we'll probably get a 4,500 test, which is another 20 down from there. And then we got to kind of see what it does with it. But at that point, you'd have to look at the chart and go, well, we're kind of back into something, sort of like this price action, right? That would kind of look like, back. Okay, now we're going to start.
Okay.
So we rejected yesterday right off the top of the channel, right? And, now we kind of we took out these stops right here. We made a low that was lower than this swing low before the bounce up. And so now it's like, okay, if we go back and now if we make a new lower low and we don't take out the high, then I think we're looking to come back to 4,500.
Yeah, man. It's like and it gets really, really weird. It's like you don't have it drawn, but I think Stonkington would possibly call a megaphone somewhere in there. I think at the same time, I think one of the things that was most concerning yesterday is the sheer amount of bid side calls that just came ripping off the deck. Like there was a lot of damage done yesterday from a flow standpoint as far as calls being ripped off the board. A lot of damage. And I think it's rare that I use the word damage when it comes to that, but damage was done via flow. So from my perspective and looking at it, there's a positive in that in saying, okay, we just got to call it square. We have to call it even there right now from this morning, for opening moving forward. We have to call flow neutral to bearish until we see otherwise. Now, not saying that it's a bearish setup, not saying anything along those lines. What I'm saying is they ripped off a fuck ton of upside activity yesterday on those down candles. And to a degree, there was a level of panic involved with that sell. A degree of panic. It's like, so, and they, even when we saw them mediocre trying to buy the dip a couple of times, there are probably three or four different times that I called out yesterday. They're trying to buy the dip. They're trying to buy it here. And they got absolutely just face blasted.
Yep.
So flow is going to be very, very important. Now, here's the one, I don't want to say caveat to all of this. We have Apple reporting next week. I think we have Amazon also reporting next week. I think we have several big dogs reporting next week. These types of pulls, especially with the volatility that we've seen on the NASDAQ the past several days, are somewhat healthy as far as positioning for a move higher. But that flow needs to come back in. The flow definitely needs to walk back in to maintain even the midpoint of this channel that you have posted right there.
Yeah.
Like when I say Bender, they ripped off a lot. They ripped off a lot of SBX. They ripped off a lot of Nvidia, even though Nvidia is getting a nice bounce this morning. The only one that I really would see little tip taps were Apple up and over 200. There was a decent amount of that going out a couple of weeks to a couple of months as far as upside activity. Names like Tesla, they have demolished that thing to where there's really not a lot of upside activity on flow. Even the weekly targets that they continue to try to hit to the upside, it's like they were heavily, pegging these 267.50s. It's like those got destroyed. 270s were on fire earlier in the week. That got destroyed. So we have to look at it from the standpoint to where we have been stripped butt naked. Like we were all dressed up for the most part going to the party, and then nothing. Then also at the same time, do you remember when you came back and you were like, well, what's going on, what do you see? And I said flow was trash.
Mm-hmm.
Before we got the dump, flow was trash, not because it was loaded with puts, just because the sheer amount of bid side calls that continue to come in before we even started to get the dump, before we got the news items about banks and then the second news item about Japan. The flow started saying, hey, they are moving off of calls. Maybe that was an anticipation for the top of that channel that you have there, the news item, subsequent dump. That's fine. But moving forward, we have to ask the question of what are we going to get? And we have to be honest about what we're seeing on flow. We have to be honest, because if they're coming back in and they're hitting, and they like to hit the Monday and Tuesday SPY activity, if we're getting Monday and Tuesday SPY 450 action, I would not want to be leaning long.
Yeah.
I just would not. We have to be very aware of what lines are coming in. And with Apple reporting next week, that's a big piece of it, big piece of the puzzle. That flow can be very confusing. So we have to be very, very, what's the word? Discerning. Is discerning the right word?
I think so. Yeah.
I think let's just go with it.
We'll go with it.
We have to be very discerning in how we're looking at flow coming in up against these charts, because it's like, again, it's like middle-ish of this channel that, yesterday felt like fucking, we were like there were incoming nukes for a period of time on that drawdown. That was just straight. And the candles that they were selling, those are big down candles. That wasn't like, oh, we're going to wibble wobble you. It's like, no, we're going to dump on you. And that's a very difficult place to trade when you get those dump candles, those big candles that start rolling through. So I don't know. What else you got?
Well, I'm still looking at, or, we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday, but, some point over the next few weeks coming down and testing the bottom of this channel. I don't know that we'll make it all the way down there, but yeah, I'm still looking for us to, we've kind of played around with the top of the channel here, and I think you're right that flow is going to be, pretty important. We were kind of looking for this up against the top of this channel yesterday. And then, flow started to sour a little bit. Let's see what they think next week looks like. And I'm most interested in August expiration, just because I think around that time, there's a possibility that we kind of wobble our way down towards the lower end of this channel. And now that doesn't mean that we won't go back up first. And this is always super important, right? It doesn't mean that we won't go back up first and hit this again before Apple reports. That could certainly happen. So it's not like I'm looking at this, leaning in heavily short for that move down to the bottom of the channel. No, kind of talked about it yesterday. The way that I am playing it is, there's some stuff I said yesterday. Does this mean I'm going to lean in heavily short? No, it means that I am going to, and I did yesterday, take profit on some things, free up some cash so that if I do get this move, then I get an opportunity to potentially pick some stuff up at a little bit of a discount. That's all, when I'm playing, short, most of it's intraday or very short dated. And I missed that. You and I were DMing day before yesterday, and I was trying to figure out a trade on UVXY or the VIX, on volatility in general, and I didn't end up taking anything. And I was watching it yesterday going, damn it, now I'm not going to chase it. But
what's so wild about it is like if you would have taken it, you're back right. You would have, if you didn't sell it off yesterday, right? If you take the move and you didn't sell it, you're back to square all over again. It's like they're brutalizing. You're probably red on it after probably, if in theory you probably would have been up 50 to 100% off of that move on whatever options you were grabbing. You're probably down, flat to down 10% this morning when we open, if all things hold. And that's the strange thing about trying to protect yourself. Tough running.
Well, that would have been more of a trade, right? Although, I am still thinking that we see a rise in volatility. I mean, again, the basic roadmap sort of plan that I'm looking at doesn't mean it has to happen, but it would give us a bit higher on the VIX as we come down towards the bottom of this channel. But I don't think that, barring some crazy something or other, I don't think we're going to get, I think you made a comment yesterday about there's nothing in the music for us to, drop down to 3,800 or something like that. And I agree with you. I'm not looking for anything like that. We are in at the moment in a bullish phase in the market. So I'm just looking for, again, that, manipulate it down here somewhere so that
you're looking to play the channel, which is what we should be doing.
Yeah, that's all.
Totally. And to answer your question about the August expiration stuff, it's been, I would say, more than bullish. That August 18th date. Now they ripped off quite a bit. They ripped off damn near all of those Tesla over 300 calls, 300 plus calls on Tesla out to 818. They took off a bunch of those, yesterday.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is that I know I've mentioned this a couple times, and like yesterday you said that flow out to that August expiration was bullish, and that's what I'm saying is we need to keep tabs on that because if that if it remains bullish, then I may not get this move.
Or you might, just like they did us yesterday. It's like, right. let's toss a couple of headlines, let's bleed it, and then run it back overnight. And, and maybe it's like that. It's so wild, man. It's really wild. But it's like your charts have been really, really spot on. It's like that trend line that you have, that upper trend line has been picture perfect. Look at it. Hits it, reject, hit, reject, hit, reject. And I think even when it pops it, it'll retrace back to it. And then that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I think, and we've seen this in the past, right? Where a lot of times the chart we'll hit those levels on the chart and we'll see it before the flow starts to come in, right? Obviously, but it certainly helps when the flow comes in to support the idea. That's confirmation for me, right? So when we're when we have our eyes on the possibility of, what I'm talking about, if flow starts to shift, towards that August expiration, if flow does sour and it starts looking like, okay, it's looking like, it's looking like we're going to get a nice little pull going into the back half of August. It's like, well, yeah, it was in the chart. And now flow is kind of confirming what we're looking for. And on the flip side, if we come down to the midpoint of this channel, or, if today they're blasting August expiration just bullish as hell, then it's like, okay, maybe we're not ready yet, or maybe we don't get it, whatever the case may be. But I'm kind of I'm playing the chart, and I'm also want to wait for flow to kind of confirm this idea and what I'm thinking. And if flow starts to confirm that, well, then I'll lean in a little heavier and, start looking at, probably some put spreads out to that August expiration.
Right on. What do you have on Bitcoin, out of curiosity? It's been one that we've been kind of watching as risk on, risk off. It's been kind of weird playing around this 30,000 line.
Yeah. So Bitcoin, we were talking about this move here, the pullback 382 fib right here is 38%, and kind of operating underneath what was support, right? Kind of now acting as resistance. If Bitcoin, I think if it can get above this 29, let's just say 30K, right? If it can get above 30K, then that looks pretty bullish for a move up and over 32. In the near term, it would be okay for Bitcoin to pull back into this area right in here. This would be 50% to 61.8% for the golden ratio. And if it were to do that, that would be okay, but I would want to see this hold, right? But I think as long as it's above this area in here, it's still looking good.
Looks good. It's like, and depending on your time frame, it's like you can see like on a 1 hour, that's a potential double bottom there off of, it's like, so there was a bear flag. It dumped partially, didn't make a new low, but then it double bottom with a higher high on the 1 hour, and is looking to potentially kind of break out here on the 1 hour and make that move back up towards, a couple hundred points up, which really isn't feel like a whole lot, but it's like that is within reason that we tickle 29.8 somewhere in there, 29.9 in the next couple of sessions.
It could. You can see right now we had this candle, this down candle, daily down candle. The top of that left behind a fair value gap on the daily. Top of that being 29.739.24. So as of right now, kind of same scenario. This is the down candle, left fair value gap behind, has not been able to break through it. If it comes back up in here again, it probably will get through it, and then you might get that move that you're looking for, or that you just considered as a possibility. And on the flip side, if it breaks below these wicks down here, say below 29, then it probably fills in this daily candle down to 28,422, which would be just above that 50% retracement. And I could see if it's going to make that move, I'd be watching it at that 50% level, knowing that if that gives and becomes resistance, you could see it come trade down towards the 618. But a lot of times it'll come down and tap that 50% level and then just fire. Mm-hmm. If it's if it's really strong, it holds that 382 and then just off of that. So I'll be keeping an eye on this. See what they do with it. Did you see that SBF had some charges dropped yesterday, I believe?
I did not. But he's gonna be in the clink for a minute, right? It's like you can only fraud so much.
Yeah, I think they dropped the political collusion something or other charges. I think they dropped those charges against him. Which, if you donate a bunch of money to the politicians, then they should let you off of it.
I thought that was the deal. I thought that's what happens. It's like,
right. Yeah.
It's like, no, it's the mob. You pay the mob, you're supposed to get away with it. I don't know what the problem is. There's some real cracks in the foundation to we hold so sacred when you can't even get a good bribe to work anymore. It's like, this is crazy.
Right. So they did reconfirm, that bribes work. In other news, let's see. So Ford beat on earnings, but they also this morning said they're recalling 870,000 F-150 pickups because parking brakes can turn on unexpectedly. That would be, that sounds bad.
I'm assuming their recall has more to do with actually recalling the vehicles as opposed to like an online thing like Tesla. I'm assuming that that's what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't read into it, but yeah, I'm not sure they can just, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a software thing or not, but I don't even know what model or year or whatever. If these are just brand new, 23s or 24s, I'm not really sure.
Right.
I just saw the headline and I was like, man, I'd be pissed off if I was driving down the road and all of a sudden my parking brake came on.
Yeah, no shit. No shit.
I was telling you about the this last thing I'll say, just quick little stories, telling you about all the girls, all the little girls at the rodeo with their Segways, and we had to buy one because they use them to tote their feed and water and stuff back and forth. Well, apparently, there's been quite a few injuries because if the battery dies, they just stop.
Oh no.
And if you're going fast, the thing stops and catapults you forward.
No, dude, that's horrible.
They do they warn you when the battery's low, like it starts beeping and then it starts beeping faster, telling you, hey, dumbass, get off and plug it in, right? But if you choose to ignore that, it does not gradually slow to a stop and then not work.
Boom.
It just stops. Yeah. So
yeah, that image
Segway,
that
you need to fix that.
Posted there. I could literally see that being me. I could really see that being the overall. There's just certain things I won't do. It's like motorcycle, one, stuff like that. No, those are just big no's for me.
That's freaking hilarious. Yeah. All right.
There we go.
That's about
we
it.
got about 10 minutes, man. 10 minutes.
Yep.
It's Friday. Let's have a good day. Oh, we do get data 30 minutes after open, so be aware. All about the consumer. We'll see you soon.
See you in a few.